Hello again. Today I will be demonstrating one of our most widely used programs, EzGrader, for measuring the centering of your stamps. Stamp grading is a critically important factor in determining the value of your stamps, especially for older classic issues. A stamp's grade can make a huge difference in its value. Stamp grading has for many years been determined by experts who have years of experience, but even they can be fooled and their services comes at a high cost. For the most part, stamp grading can be a very subjective process depending on which side of the stamp transaction you are on. For example, if you're selling a stamp, it's human nature to describe your stamp as better than it actually is. And if you are buying, you will try and downgrade it so you can get a better price. It's just the way it is. This is where EzGrader can excel and help you in making an objective determination of a stamp's centering. First, let's discuss what type of stamps can be graded by EzGrader. For EzGrader to effectively give you accurate results, you need a high contrast image against a black background, and the stamps must have a defined rectangular design. Many modern stamps have a continuous design or non-rectangular design, and these cannot be graded accurately. We're working on a solution to this issue for a future release of EzGrader. I personally regularly purchase stamps for my collection from dealers, eBay, and other auction sites, and I always put the image through EzGrader first to see if it passes my grade requirements. I only collect VF or better. Let's start with some examples so that you can see. So first thing we do is we open images that we have already scanned. So here's one that I've scanned. And here's the results. I'll get this other one into view here. So as you can see from this, from the results here, this stamp is being given an E grade of VF82. What that tells us is that one side is 18% smaller than the other. And if you take a look, it tells you the horizontal is 90, the vertical is 82. So that means that this top side is 18% smaller than this side. But at first glance, you might think that, oh yeah, that's a pretty good, that's almost perfect. But in actual fact, when you look at it mathematically, it's not quite centered. Let's take another example. Here is a used Canada stamp, and this one comes in as a fine to very fine 72. For the most part, cancellations don't affect the way EzGrader works unless the cancels really obliterate the design on one side so that I can't make a determination where it is. Let's move on to the next one. Again, here's another example of a used stamp. This one happens to be a perfin, but in our case it doesn't matter because we are only measuring the centering. This one comes in as a VF74. Let's see what else we have. Here's a stamp that is being offered on eBay right now from a very reputable dealer who has described this as an extra fine. And let's take a quick look. And in fact, this is true. It is an extra fine 91. Here it is on eBay, just so you know. So what we did is we copied this image and pasted it into EzGrader for measuring. So kudos to this this seller who is accurately describing their stamps. It's City Stamp Montreal, who I know very well, extremely reputable dealer. Let's go back to another example here. Here's another Canadian stamp. And we'll bring it back into view. So when EzGrader grades, it shows you the original unchanged image and then the graded image. This one comes in as a VF70. And let's move on to this one here. And this one comes in as an XF92. So very well centered. Again, vertically, it is 8% smaller on the top than it is at the bottom. And let's move on to another example. Again, this one is a fine 63. And we'll do a couple more. Here's the famous Jenny. This one comes in as a VF78. And another one. Here are the Zeppelins from the US. This one comes in as a fine 58. And at first glance, when you look at this, you go, wow, that's a pretty good stamp. Why did it grade so low? Well, when you look carefully, that top margin is really nowhere near as big as the bottom one. And one of the things that most people don't realize is when you look at this particular stamp, your eyes tend to look at the margins at the top of the perforations. If you look carefully here, you've got an elongated perf here and a couple of elongated ones, and your brain kind of looks at it and makes an overall judgment from the top, whereas EzGrader looks at the bottom of the perf tips and makes a true evaluation. And in fact, this is a fine 58. Because one side is 42% smaller than this side, the top. Let's move on. Here's a rather large stamp. There's the original, and there's the graded stamp. Now, in this particular instance, this worked relatively well, but this does really not have a true rectangular design. In our case, it does, because the lettering at the bottom is identical to the edge of the stamp, and we'll get on to that later. That one came in as a VF 63 or a fine 63. And let's look at one more example here. So here is what I would consider a poor example, and EzGrader gave this one a fair to 18. If you look at that top margin, I mean, it's minuscule. The perfs are almost right into the design, so that one is not such a great stamp. And here is another copy of that stamp. This one is much better. And this one comes in as a VG41. Again, this side is much smaller than this side. So you really need to be careful when you're looking at stamps in terms of grading. Now, this does not say anything as to the rarity of a stamp, or whether it's the fine for the issue. EzGrader does not consider that at all. It strictly looks at the mathematical centering of the design within the stamp and makes no other judgments other than that. So let's take a look at a stamp that first I'll show you how you can actually grade a stamp from when you have it in a block. So in this particular example, here's a block of stamps, and what I've done is an easy image. I've cropped out the one image, and then we'll grade that here. Now, if you look at the results here, this is basically telling us that there is really no way to determine where the centering of the stamp is. If you look, you've got letters down at the bottom here. The design kind of scrolls off to the edge of the stamp, and there's really no way to determine accurately what the centering of the stamp is. And in fact, you can't assign a grade to this particular stamp. And many modern stamps that have continuous designs, they're basically photographs. You cannot measure those. Please note that EzGrader is not an expertizing program. It will only give you the mathematical centering of a stamp. It does not, nor is it designed to take into account such subjective factors as freshness, paper quality, vibrancy of color, impressions, flaws, etc. It strictly looks at the mathematical centering of a stamp, which is the most important factor in determining a grade of a stamp, albeit not the only factor that needs to be assessed. The most important thing about the results EzGrader gives you is the numerical grade, not the subjective grade of fine, very fine, superb, etc. What one dealer or seller calls superb, another may call fine. But the E grade of 97 tells you that one side is only 3% smaller than the other, and you can call that any grade you like. But if someone tells you you have a Scott number 158 with an E grade of XF 97, they will know exactly what you mean. When it comes time to sell your stamp, EzGrader can print out an E-grade certificate, which you can present to the potential buyers as proof of your claim to be a particular grade. So I'll show you how we do that. So for example, if you wanted to print a certificate for this stamp that you have graded, you would just click on this icon here, and EzGrader will print out the resulting information. It gives you the grade that it determined and so forth. So let's close that down. A free demo of EzGrader is available from our website at www.ezstamp.com, and you're welcome to try it free for 30 days. That's all for now. We'll have more EzGrader tutorials soon. Thank you for listening.